Spring into love with the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we explore the glimmer-filled world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian drama.
So let's get this therapeutic adventure started.
Welcome back. I'm Lala, a non-French speaking French Canadian.
And I'm Nini, a first-generation ABC, that's American-born Chinese that speaks broken English.
And if you're new to the Breaking Script podcast, we are in sister-in-law's autumn mission to spread joy and glimmers, the opposite of triggers, while offering ways to open windows of tolerance through watching Hallmark movies, and Asian dramas are coming soon.
Yay! We have 4 unique segments that give you a guide to review, or what we like to call break script, with healthy and unhealthy romantic and family relationships, as well as healthy and unhealthy behaviors in these movies. Yes, they are there. And so we always start with a movie summary that is like a spa for your ears. So even if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie or you don't have access, you can still experience it as if you did, because let me tell you. Some of these summaries get long and it's really like you watch the movie. So that way you can follow along with our Boba ratings and our 4 unique segments of Breaking Script that will magically turn your Hallmark movie and Asian drama watching experience into a more meaningful self-care session. And today is our 50th episode.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe it either.
It's
but
wild.
it truly has become self-care.
Yes, very true.
To keep doing this. Like, it's a good pause, reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like episode 50, let's discuss some controversial topics.
Oh,
okay. Ready for this? Lala
yes.
doesn't have a head up.
No.
Did you watch Bluey?
Well, I have watched Bluey, but have I watched it recently? No.
The last 2 episodes?
What?
Your face. You're gonna have to go watch with your nieces. Okay, I haven't, like, I've watched Bluey, like, here and there. We enjoy it. But there was this buzz around, like, the last 2 episodes. So I'm like, okay, I have to go watch these 2 new episodes. The first one was like, I didn't get it. It's called Ghost Basket, and they're, like, preparing to sell their house, and, like, you know, the kids don't want.
They're gonna sell their house. I love their house.
Exactly. So then the last episode is 28 minutes long. Like, literally the log line is, this is a 28-minute episode. And so it was like such an exciting thing. We're all going to watch.
Uh-huh.
And it's all about them moving and preparing to move.
Oh.
The end of the episode, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, cut it out here if you don't want to know. They end up not moving. And I was like, I was wondering. My goodness. I feel, funny. Shout out. I feel like I had to do like the Mockingjay, like, what you call it? Sign. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm talking about. Salute. The Mockingjay salute. To all the parents that have moved recently or are in process of moving or need to move, because oh my goodness, how traumatic. Like, right? You're watching Bluey and like, see, they don't need to move. They like made it like a good thing. Like, oh, let's be content with what we have here. And it's like, oh my goodness, the dad was the moral for a job. I know there's so many more pressing things out there, but let's talk about Bluey. Tell me about Bluey. Oh my gosh, I follow this couple, and I had that thought, and then I follow this couple on Instagram that are hilarious. Like, they both should be stand-up comedians. The mom's a teacher and the dad is a lawyer, I think, but they both make like comedic reels. And so they got on and talked about it because they're in the middle of moving.
That is so funny.
And they watched it right before bedtime. So they're like, who's going to pay us for the 2 hours of trauma that we had to work through with our kids after watching that episode? Because they're literally like moving boxes everywhere. It's hilarious. I was like, oh my gosh.
That is
there
so
really
funny.
Are parents out there that were traumatized by this episode. But anyways, another controversial topic. What are we going to do next? Because it's either Curious Caterer with Nikki DeLoach and Andrew Walker. That's a mystery, a cozy mystery, which I told you to be skeptical. You are now. I can see it on your face.
Yeah, definitely.
The other one is Branching Out, which, oh my goodness, there's so many articles with controversy about it. Do you know why?
No, why?
Because the female lead, which I love Sarah Drew, um, she plays a single mom who conceived a baby through IVF, but she's always been single.
Oh, interesting.
And so I didn't think about it. Like, so the daughter wants to go find her sperm donor dad.
Oh
Might not be
gosh.
something that we want to encourage.
Yeah. Especially like there's all privacy laws around it. It's supposed to be like anonymous mostly.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah. And then, I
interesting.
mean, obviously it's a Hallmark movie, so the stories that they fall in love. Anyway,
Hmm.
I could have some good content because I know that you,
I've had experience going.
I don't know.
Mm.
Well, we could talk about it, but I know you weren't as excited about today's movie, even though
I
it was
wanted
Niagara.
to.
I
I
know.
wanted to.
It didn't give you, we'll get into it. So tell me, we'll have to decide at the end. Are we going to be doing, and you guys, please vote in the polls or comment in our YouTube channel. Um, should we do the cozy mystery then? Or should we do a Heine movie?
I
A
might be
Tyler
ready for
Hynes movie?
I might be ready for a Heine movie. I
Okay.
feel like after the cozy mystery, after this past one, I'm like, let's switch it up. The Way Home has ruined me. I think I just really need a switch.
Okay. I'll try to pick the best Heine movie we have left because just remember, manage your expectations. It was always you. Nothing's going to measure up to it was always you. It just is what
Okay.
it is. Okay.
Okay.
But I will say, we'll get to it in the glimmers. I watched this movie for the scenery.
There definitely was scenery.
Okay. Well, let's get into it then.
Hi, Nini here. Did you know that I put timestamps of our segments in the show notes? I've been doing it for several episodes now. So if you've already watched and want to skip this part, you can skip to the segments you're most interested in our episode. So you're welcome. I also always include when you can watch the movie again next. You can catch today's movie again, the day that this episode is being published, April 25th, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. But it has been streaming for several weeks on Hallmark Movies Now, which makes it so worth it. It's still streaming without commercials on Hallmark Movies Now, but it didn't premiere on the Hallmark Channel until April 20th, 2024. Our movie today is Falling in Love in Niagara, starring Jocelyn, Hudon, and Jeanotte. We open this love story with the grand, sunny, happy shots of the iconic Golden Gate Bridge and San Francisco's painted ladies. You know, the colorful Victorian houses of San Francisco. The beginning of this movie is apparently a clear sign that our leading Lady Madeline is the overdone, typical Hallmark female lead trope. The city-dwelling, classic type A, list-making, people-pleasing, life-planning heroine in desperate need of an unscripted adventure outside of her city. With her eye mask on while still in bed, Madeline claps her hands gracefully and her blinds obediently open. Like, what in 1999 is happening here? Instead of clap on, clap off lights, they have clap open blinds now? Can somebody tell me if this is a real thing? I digress. She gracefully gets out of bed and enters her pristine kitchen and opens her immaculately organized fridge. She grabs a labeled juice from her fridge because, of course, she has fresh pressed juices pre-portioned in rainbow colors, mind you, and labeled for each day of the week along with her meal prepped food. This brings me so much joy. Anyways, in contrast, the likely male lead Mike is the human opposite of the perfectly put together Madeline. He scrambles out of bed, hair delightfully tousled, and is clearly hours late for work, and this seems like a regular happenstance for him. Back in Madeline's apartment, her fiancé Jason wanders in a rush, but looking frantically for his lucky socks that apparently he has worn to every sales pitch for years. And Madeline didn't know about them and keeps doing his laundry even when he doesn't want her to because, I mean, she has to. He does lights and darks together. And she tells him that she threw those socks away because they had holes in them. Duh. In the midst of his frantic search, she says she can't wait to marry him in 5 weeks. And he says, whoa, only 5 weeks? That's fast. I mean, come on, tell me this isn't going to work without telling me. Madeline proudly and excitedly announces that she has planned their entire honeymoon at Niagara Falls in celebration of her grandparents' original magical meet-cute generations earlier. She's packed an itinerary with couples activities like a vineyard day trip, a bike ride along the falls, the botanical gardens, the Ferris wheel overlooking the falls, and it looks like she wants to reenact her grandparents' legendary first kiss on the Maid of Mist boat tour. Moving on, while Jason is at his sales pitch, Madeline makes a call from her place of employment. No surprise here, she's a corporate accountant of some kind, and unbeknownst to Madeline, her call winds up patched through to Mike, who we've been introduced to. He is her less than enthusiastic future tour guide who is clearly foreshadowed as the delightfully unscripted human addition to her precisely managed life. Mike not so sneakily mouths "help me" to his friend and employer while he's on the phone, as Madeline gushes on about her honeymoon plan she wants to confirm. By the way, his friend that he mouthed that to is his employer, Emily, also his BFF. Anyway, she confirms these plans that Mike considers super boring. Cut to a restaurant scene where Madeline looks happily content that she just confirmed every minute detail of their honeymoon and can't wait to share it with Jason, and also hear how he got that account that was for sure a shoo-in after his sales pitch. Jason walks in sulking. Obviously, he didn't get the account, and he blames Madeline for throwing away his lucky socks. Also, he doesn't want his life plan, so he does the obvious thing and breaks off the engagement. Madeline sulks and grieves for 4 weeks in barbecue chips and pizza rolls. Then her sister Harley, a divorcee who works in marketing, finally convinces Madeline to climb out of her pit of despair and food, and clean off the running mascara and turn the honeymoon into a sister moon. Harley already took off work. She convinces her that she should go because Madeline doesn't like wasting money and everything is already paid for, and where is her sense of adventure and spontaneity and the live in the moment spirit? So basically, Harley convinces Madeline to go in order to convince Jason that she's not as boring or predictable as he thinks she is. So they do it. When they get there, they check into the hotel, and Madeline feels like she needs some air and goes for a walk by the beautiful falls, takes in the beautiful scenery, the place she's wanted to come all along to reminisce about her grandparents' love story, and aspires to be like them. She even brought her grandparents' picture to reminisce by the falls, and talks to their picture and tells them how she hopes to find a love of her own like theirs one day. The foreshadowing is as subtle as fireworks. When she hears a guy playing guitar and singing, she turns around and walks towards him. Mike ends up splashed with coffee after Madeline mistakes him as a struggling musician who possibly sleeps on that bench he's playing guitar on in this public park in front of the falls. Their meet awkward, because it's not a meet cute, sets the stage for friendly and sometimes not so friendly bickering, unexpected chemistry, and an inescapable Hallmark destiny. They continue to bicker. Madeline walks off and wants to forget it all. The next morning, the sisters excitedly arrive at the tour guide office. And of course, their tour guide is none other than the charmingly disheveled and always tardy Mike. He and Madeline, surprised, resume their friendly hostilities from the start to the point where Madeline asks if Emily can be their tour guide instead. She cannot, because her brother's best friend is getting married that weekend, and Emily promised to be their tour guide and help with their wedding. Emily offers to go with them on their first activity on the agenda, the botanical gardens. But after that, Mike's on his own with Madeline and Harley. While at the botanical gardens, we find out that Madeline's sister Harley is a free spirit photographer at heart, but her ex-husband made her quit photography to take a marketing desk job because it's more practical and they need the security. It seems that Harley and Emily have a lot in common because Emily's brother was the one who convinced her to leave her desk job and start her own tour guide business. As these two women continue to discuss their commonalities, their outfits match the bold, vivid hues of like goldenrod and deep red blooming around them in the botanical gardens. Are these possibly clear hints that a new beginning will blossom as well? Listen to find out. Madeline and Mike's outfits are the opposite. They are a complementary study of a washed out blue and teal with reserved neutrals, which ironically make them stand out against the bright colors around them, waiting for the inevitable sparks to illuminate their undeniable chemistry. After the botanical gardens, the sisters are saved from hangry devastation when kind strangers, Beth and Phil, that are behind them, graciously offer to share their table at a very popular restaurant that doesn't have any more reservations for the evening. And it even has a view of the falls. In a very Hallmark twist, they turn out to be the couple whose wedding prevented Emily from being Madeline's tour guide. It's Emily's brother's best friend. As Madeline laments being stuck with the tour guide Mike, we cut to said tour guide playing video games on his laptop, sitting on the edge of his bed and pining over an old photo of him and clearly an X on his phone. The next day, with Harley stuck on a work Zoom, Madeline begrudgingly has to go solo with Mike to recreate her grandparents' romantic vineyard visit. Thanks to Mike's disorganization, they arrive on the wrong day to find that it's closed for the weekend, which allows him to open up about his broken heart / CPTSD caused by his ex leaving to finish her master's degree out of the country, only to never return, and she replaced him with someone more cultured, abroad, in Ohio. Determined to help her embrace spontaneity, Mike begs Madeline to throw out her plans and let him take her on an adventure tour instead. He says, use this trip to show that guy you are really wild and unpredictable. You can take photos and post it on your socials, and Jason will realize you're not boring. It's time to step out of your comfort zone. She agrees, as long as he's on time and organized. As Madeline shares her newfound carefree spirit with her sister, Emily arrives begging Harley to photograph the wedding for the couple she was supposed to be touring. Of course, Harley agrees, and this leaves Madeline to complete the adventure tour weekend with Mike, just the two of them. The first adventure is ziplining across the mighty falls themselves. The line you'll hear repeated throughout this movie from Mike to Madeline is that pushing through fear is the greatest feeling in the world, and he adds that nothing in life is worth doing if it doesn't come with a bit of risk. When Madeline starts to have a panic attack, Mike snaps her out of it with a pep talk. You are strong. You are courageous. You are full of whimsy and adventure. And of course she snaps out of it. Problem solved. Phobia solved. She's not afraid of heights, and she does a zip line twice because clearly there's not another soul around. And if you look closely, you can see fall leaves as they zip line across. No CGI here, which I really appreciate, but I don't think they meant for it to be fall. Anyway, meanwhile, Harley accompanies and takes pictures of Emily, showing Phil and Beth a good time in the butterfly garden. Harley finds inspiration in a butterfly metaphor about transformation, confiding in Emily that she feels stuck after walking away from her photography passion. Emily offers encouraging words about following your passion that are all so hallmarky, but then they include an impressive Maya Angelou quote. You'll have to listen all the way to the end or our breaking script segments to find out what it is. Madeline looks at photos of the two on the zip lines at the end of the day, and she tells Harley Mike's not so bad, and she's going to continue going on ventures with him solo because Harley will still be following the engaged couple around, Beth and Phil, to take pictures for Beth's travel blog. Anyway, the next day, Mike starts off the adventure day by presenting Madeline with, wait for it, an itinerary, but still leaves room for spontaneity, he says. It's a compromise. It blesses her socks off. She loves it. Anyways, they'll still do mini golf and do the barrel photo over the falls, and she feels so at ease, like maniacally at ease. He says she's insane. She says she's practical. There's a montage of fun, adventure type activities with tempting and beautiful views. They continue with like a people mover thing over the falls. Sorry, I don't know what it's called. It's like hanging on cables over the rapids. Beautiful photo ops. Speedboating through the rapids around Niagara and other things, I'm sure. And then they arrive at the Sky Wheel. That is the Niagara Ferris wheel, which is also where the mini golf is. They're apparently meeting the rest of the gang for mini golf. Emily's brother, Keegan, who is also Phil's best man, joins the crew and clearly has a spark with Harley, which he ends up getting paired up with for mini golf because Mike bought tickets to take Madeline on the Ferris wheel, which was so important as a part of her original plans to her because her grandparents talked about the Ferris wheel they went on at Niagara. This is a new swanky one, but it's the same location. This Ferris wheel has cabs with romantic elevator-like music. Madeline gets nervous about the heights and anxiety kicks up because of her. This is what she says. I don't know if this is TMI for someone you've only met for a week, but anyway, she shares about her chaotic childhood. Her parents weren't meant to be parents, she says. They were left home alone a lot because their parents didn't come home until after midnight, so Nana and Papa ended up raising them, and they were so in love. They shared a magical kiss on the boat, and she wants the same magical soulmate to share that same magical kiss with on the Maid of the Mist boat. Then Mike opens up and shares that he's scared to be dating again. She says a wise man once told her that pushing through fear is the best feeling in the world, giving him his own lesson. And he says, well, I don't know, maybe love just leads to pain. Anyway, while they're still on that Ferris wheel, Harley and Keegan are hitting it off for sure at miniature golf, and they can see the Ferris wheel going. Keegan tells her you're never too old to start pursuing your passion, and every day you should be making choices to push you towards your destiny, even if it's terrifying. Then all of a sudden they both see the Ferris wheel stop, and Harley knows her sister has always been afraid of getting stuck at the top. Mike tells Madeline he asked them to do it. Actually, he paid the Ferris wheel extra to make it stop. He's laughing while she's having like a panic attack, and he says he wants to give her a chance to appreciate the view, and magically, suddenly she calms and appreciates the view. Yeah, it doesn't work like that in real life, people. Anyway, Mike was thinking about playing in an open mic. He's opening up to Madeline and shares as they're still on this Ferris wheel. He says he hasn't played in front of anyone except for at a park for 2 years, and she promises she will be there. That night, Madeline pores over the plethora of photos of her and Mike from their adventures, grinning until she lands on her engagement photo, a sobering reminder. The next day, Harley gleefully teases Madeline that she's become Mike's muse, especially after Emily confided the real reason he hasn't performed music in 2 years is because of his ex. Meanwhile, Mike arrives at work walking on air, prompting Emily to bluntly confront his undeniable crush on Madeline. On a more grounding tour of the historic giant power plant by the Niagara Falls, Madeline and Mike's banter takes a serious turn as she offers him accounting help for the struggling business. He says she's pretty great, and then they go 120 feet underground in this elevator, and they emerge at one of the most beautiful panoramic views of the falls. They end up gazing into each other's eyes and almost kissing, but she says I shouldn't, and it's awkward, but they walk away. It's just fine. At a cafe, Harley is looking a bit ennui. If you don't know what that means, it's because you haven't seen that episode of Gilmore Girls. She's alone and just kind of lonesome, bored, but also trying to calm down from being triggered by wedding stuff. That's where Keegan finds her. And she shares how she's triggered by the wedding stuff because of her divorce, and he says it's okay, he's divorced too. And they talk about, are you ever afraid if you weren't enough? And he tells her, you are enough. And then he invites Harley and Madeline to his plans for the night. Keegan booked a room at the Tonic, which is a karaoke place. Anyway, Madeline eggs on a hesitant Mike and says it's the perfect chance to practice performing in front of people, because that's what karaoke is, right? And he says if he loses his voice before open mic, it's her fault. She says, come on, where's your sense of adventure? Throwing his lessons back at him. He says he needs to up his fit game and wants to match her glam up, and even texts her a picture of his outfit for her to approve. She approves, and at the same time, all of a sudden, she gets a text from Jason that says, I miss you. She involuntarily texts, I miss you too, back, and throws her phone when her sister comes into the room. She says she's decided to go full glam for karaoke, and she has her sister go full glam too. So when they walk into the Tonic, it is big smiles for Mike and Keegan. Mike signs him and Madeline up for a classic duet, which we can only assume is an extremely dated and public domain or made-up song to avoid any licensing issues. And then for some reason, after karaoke, Mike and Madeline are on a romantic stroll, just the two of them. We don't know how that happens, but there they are. It's a nighttime scene. The falls are lit up with rainbow lights, and he tells her when he's with her, life is full of color, and the falls are full of color. And that's when they both go in for the kiss, and it is a passionate one because she even pulls him in for more. But then she won't let him walk her home, and because of that text, I think she excuses herself and she promises she will be at that open mic. The next morning, Madeline tells Harley about the kiss, and Harley thinks it's great. Madeline isn't sure. She says, he brings out the best in you. You're so fearless and free. But Madeline's like, we've only known each other for a week. and we live in San Francisco. Anyway, she finally tells her sister about the text. Harley is so upset. She thinks Madeline deserves so much better than Jason, and she's never seen her so happy as Mike is making her. Later that day, Phil and Beth show up with invitations to the wedding and make sure to let Madeline know that they're inviting Mike too, and he will for sure come, knowing that they've invited her. In the tour office, he tells Emily that he wrote a song about Madeline and he's going to perform it at open mic night. Basically, he's going to kill two fears with one song by also using the song to tell Madeline how he feels about her. Then he sings a song called Emily and Me, and it's hilarious. He says, like, you're my best friend because you're the coolest. You had to be there. It's amazing. You should watch it just for the song. Anyway, then Harley and Keegan have their turn to have a romantic stroll by the falls. It's just now it's during the day. And this whirlwind truly kicks into high gear once Keegan convinces Harley to ditch her dead-end job by flaunting his CEO influence and ability to make her insta-famous. Then early that evening, Madeline is dressed up and ready for open mic night with a silly grin and gushes over text from Mike when there is a knock at the door. She thinks it's her sister, but no, surprise, it's Jason barging in to say that he had to see her. He just misses her. He can't believe he let her go. Let me wrap this up by saying, obviously, she misses out on open mic night because she didn't actually ignore Jason's message. Then Jason says, I bought tickets for tomorrow morning. They have to leave tomorrow morning, so she's missing the wedding too. He proposes again to Madeline on a romantic night at nighttime with another colorful view of the falls. And she hesitates, but says yes. Like, you just can't believe it. The next morning, she goes into the tour agency office to solo apologize to Mike. And he says, why did you let me kiss you? And she says, I don't know, I'm just confused. And he says, what now? And she shows him the engagement ring. And he does the whole, like, do you even love him thing? And she's like, I can't give up a 3-year relationship because of a week-long vacation. And he tells her it takes courage to love somebody and it's cowardly to settle. They're upset. But then he gives her a gift, and she opens the gift after she leaves, and it is the quarter she threw in his cup, but it's like surrounded by rhinestones, and he made it into a necklace. It's adorbs. Anyway, she sees Phil when she's walking back to the hotel room and tells him, like, can't come to the wedding, and he's like, you're happy, right? And she's like, yeah, I think so. Anyway, she's like, I can't throw away my life because of one great weekend. When Madeline goes back into the room, Jason is already dismissive. She realizes they're leaving early because of a golf trip. That's when she's like, no way. She says goodbye to Jason. It's time for her to finally take a chance on something, on love. She walks off, luggage and all. Cut to, there's a wedding taking place by the fall. It is Beth and Phil's wedding with only Keegan, Harley, and Mike there, and obviously a missing Madeline. Then, of course, she runs up in a beautiful green dress. Mike runs downstairs to meet her just below where the wedding is taking place. And they interrupt this wedding by each have a long monologue, like that they're falling for one another, they're declaring their love, and they end up kissing in front of their friends in midst of this wedding they've interrupted. Harley lets Keegan know she wants to take him up on his offer to help her with his photography business. And of course, right after the You May Kiss Your Bride, after they resume this wedding ceremony, the bride throws the bouquet, and of course, Madeline catches it, and then Mike says he can imagine getting married in front of the falls. He says, come with me. They immediately and conveniently get on a boat that usually has a line, but not for them, and it goes under the falls, and they kiss passionately, and of course, thank goodness that's not the end, because it ends at open mic night a week later, because now Mike's known Madeline for 2 weeks instead of 1. And we learn that Jeanotte has an incredible voice. He plays the original song he wrote for her with a montage of all the adventures they've had at the falls and more, and kisses and ponchos on a boat that goes in front of the falls, and you get drenched, and that is finally the end.
Okay, now is a part of our episode where we give this movie a rating out of 10 bobas. We have 4 different categories. We have writing out of 10 bobas, characters out of 10 bobas, how funny it was out of 10 bobas, and our overall rating. Nini, what did you give the writing?
I almost feel like you need to go first.
Okay, I will. It's a 4, which I feel like is quite high.
Are you
for the
serious?
writing.
I feel like that's lower than Blind Date Book Club.
I think I liked Blind Date Book Club more than this movie.
Wait, what?
This was, this was too fast. Like everything, even like
Oh.
The cadence of the flow was so fast. I'm just like, this is so unrealistic to me. Like, I get we accept that when we watch a Hallmark movie, but this was just aggravatingly fast for me. Anyways, okay, what did you give the writing?
Okay, I gave it a 7 because it wasn't terrible. There was quick banter and it made sense. And I realized it's a higher score, but I was comparing it to Blind Date Book Club. It made the scores go up higher because I liked this story better and it gave me more content to break script with.
I am shocked that you liked this story better because it has all the things we don't like about Hallmark.
I know. I think it's the scenery. I don't know what it is. And it was funnier than Blind Date Book Club and it made more sense. Like, I get the cadence of like the relationship was better in Blind Date Book Club-ish, but there was no chemistry. I didn't care.
I just this is basically our plot holes, continuity errors, things we didn't like section. So
I know,
okay,
the whole thing will be.
okay, then what did you give characters? Well, I'll just tell you, I gave them a 3.
Wow, you really did not like this movie. I think maybe it's my fault. I think
No.
what it was is I raised your expectations because it was about Niagara.
Well, I think that I was maybe I came in with it too high, but I don't know. This one was really far out there for me, like to wrap my
What
head
didn't you
around.
like about the characters?
It just wasn't realistic. One, like if we're just gonna like, would strangers let you sit at their dinner table at a restaurant and then
Oh,
like
we have to get into that.
right, starting out, and then it's just like these issues with relationships, but they get resolved very fast, and
Oh, yeah,
you're
yeah.
invited to a wedding that really was like not even a wedding because no one was there and you didn't have a photographer. Like, that's like the number one thing. Anyways, there was just too much that I had to justify. So what did
Okay,
you give the
okay.
characters?
For me, they had a 7 because Blind Date Book Club made this one go up. Remember how like we wanted more backstory for the characters in Blind Date Book Club? Like none
Yes,
of it made sense there.
you're right. They
I
did
c-
have more backstory in this one.
I cared more. Like each supporting actor had plenty of backstory that
You're
connected
right.
and had a meaningful role in the bigger story.
You're right. Definitely.
Like it gave me original vibes of like this is the type of movie that made me want to start the podcast. I get it
Okay.
because it's like it's tropey. It's the stuff we don't like, but I was like, oh, this is original vibes. Okay, go ahead. I can't imagine what your next one is.
Funny. Oh, it's a 2. I didn't laugh.
But the
Like,
banter was like cheesy, like there was more cheesy banter in this one. I didn't LOL, but it was more than Blind. See, again, I keep comparing it to Blind Date Book Club because that was our last one of like
yeah, and I
re-engaging.
didn't think that was funny either.
But that one didn't even have like funny lines. Like this one had like they tried to make it funny. Like
Yes, you're
the
right. That's why
comedic
it's a 2,
timing.
not a 0.
She didn't appreciate it. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. What is your overall? Oh my
My
goodness.
overall is a 3. It's a 3. It's, to me, I honestly don't know if there's one that I like less than this. That's how much I just disliked it. And I went into it like, here's the thing. When I am watching a movie, I'm setting myself up for success. I make myself a coffee. I sit there, I get in a comfy chair, like I make it enjoyable. And I just couldn't with this. Like, I set this movie up for success for me. Like, I got myself cozy, I made myself a coffee, like I sat in my favorite chair, and it just didn't do it for me. I was
So
not interested.
sorry.
Like, I feel like how you couldn't stay interested with Blind Date Book Club is how I felt. Like, I felt restless. Like, I ended up folding laundry because I just couldn't
Oh,
stay with
enjoy
it.
it. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
And this is not at the bottom of this for me. This was a 7. I actually gave it even a 0.5 for the scenery because it made
Wow.
me actually want to book the
A trip.
activities they had. And it wasn't just it didn't look like terrible CGI. I love the
Oh,
use of
was there
color. I'll mention it in
CGI? I didn't
glimmers.
even think there was CGI.
That's what I'm saying is a lot of times in these Hallmark movies, yeah, you haven't seen enough. So I have a
Mm,
question for you then. Do you
yeah.
think that you like the Christmas ones more?
Yeah, but I think it's because of my connection with Christmas too,
Mhm.
right? So I think there's, even though I felt a very strong connection, and this kind of gets into my glimmers, if so,
Yeah.
we'll just like skip into glimmers.
Okay.
The connection of the place. Like I grew up, I'm only live like an hour and change away from like, yeah, maybe an hour and 20 minutes away from Niagara. Like
Yeah.
every year at our church, the women's conference would be in Niagara at that Sheridan that you see
Oh,
in so
yes.
many
I've been
scenes.
there.
So
Yes.
a lot of my childhood is like when my mom was at this women's conference, my dad would take us and we would spend the weekend in Niagara. And something you didn't see, which I was really
Aw.
surprised they didn't show, is where the sky wheel is and that mini golf, which I've played at that mini golf place.
Yeah.
Um, it's called Clifton Heights,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, and they have all these arcades. There's the Guinness Book of World Record
Mm.
museum there. There's a wax
Yeah.
museum. Like there's tons of stuff. It's very touristy, very fun.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a lot of like really fond memories of
Yeah.
being in that area. And even like every Christmas the winery area is actually
Oh.
called Niagara on the Lake. So it's a little
Hmm.
bit further uh away from the falls, but along the water.
Yeah.
And there's a historic area where all the vineyards are called Niagara on the Lake. We go there every Christmas to see a Christmas play, like, and it's so idyllic and it's historic, like the 1800s, like everything
Yeah.
that they said. So I have a strong connection. I
Yeah.
loved it. They even referenced British Columbia and they said like you don't hear the word Ontario a lot, so it was kind of cool
Right.
to hear Ontario in a Hallmark movie. Um, but I don't know, but the scenery was beautiful. It really
Yeah.
was. And like that is Niagara Falls. It's stunning.
Totally. I think there's that fine line between there's things that if there's nostalgia and things that we connect with personally, we'll like it more. But if it doesn't do those things justice that we have a
Justice.
connection to, then it's going to get a
Mm,
low score, which is what it sounds
true.
like what happened. So that's
Yeah.
why our first segment is so appropriate. I changed the name to What's Love Got to Do with It? Because it's like to love or not to love. It's a very fine line here of glimmers and what we love. I mean, I feel like my favorite thing was that those activities looked legitimately fun and I want to do them. Like, is the zip line across Niagara Falls like a real thing?
Yeah, that's it. Everything that you saw is real there. And even I've never gone jet boating in like down there, but I have been jet boating in the St. Lawrence River. And it is
Oh.
a blast. Like jet
Is that
boating
what
is
it
so much
is?
fun.
It's called
Yeah,
jet boating?
jet
And
boating.
that
Yeah.
thing that said like whirlpool on the side. And so does
Yeah.
that like go like by the falls? Like,
No,
in
it's
front?
more like in the
Okay.
rapids. Like, no, you wouldn't go by the falls. It's far further down. But you get because the falls create so much waves and things like that. So it is fun. Like that's what you can do in the St.
Oh.
Lawrence River. But the Maid of the Mist, you have I don't know, maybe they don't call it jet boating, but we used to call it jet boating. Um there's so much more. There's the butterfly conservatory is a real thing. Like all that stuff is real.
Yeah, see, did Niagara sponsor this movie? Because it's like those are the things that make it now, like even my kids and I, like my daughter who watched the movie was like, I want to go do those things the next time we go to Niagara. Like it added something to our bucket list of like, this is a
Yes.
place we would actually go visit. I want to go do that. Like
Hmm.
it added to our boba breaks,
Yeah.
like for our Breaking Bread show. Like these are places we want to travel to and
Yeah.
eat things. But anyways, and not only that, but there were so many scenic shots. I so appreciate. I don't think any of
Hmm.
them were CGI. They looked fantastic. That
Hmm.
I'm going back to like foundations. I realized this week or last week, like I need to go back and do like my basic foundational like brain rewiring because that's where I'm at. And
Mm.
it includes like going back to like past, I call them golden memories or like future
Mm,
visualizations. And it's so helpful to have like something scenic, but a lot of times
yes.
your brain needs change. You like need new scenes like to go to. So that was really helpful for me this week because there were so many like different like POVs of around
Yeah.
the falls
Yeah.
that I've never seen before, even though I visited before. So anyhow, I loved it. Lala did not. So I have more
No.
glimmers than Lala. Like, I thought I liked the wardrobe. I like Jocelyn Hudon's wardrobe in this one.
I agree. I will give it that. It was a much better wardrobe than we've seen in the past.
Yes. And I also appreciate how they used colors. Like, my
Mhm.
favorite was when they were in I think it was the botanical garden, like outside scene
Mhm.
where you see Mike and Madeline are still like bickering, like they don't get
Yeah.
along yet, but they're in outfits that are like blue neutrals, and then her sister and Emily, the other tour guide, are in like bright popping colors that actually matched the flowers.
Yes.
They were like,
Yes.
it was just, I was like, that is a brilliant, great foreshadowing, great use
Mhm.
of color and story. Like, I appreciate things like that.
Yeah.
I also appreciated the sister relationship.
Yeah. It was nice.
Like, how amazing for like Harley to be like, hey, let's go on a sister moon, like to have a relationship where you're comfortable going on a sister moon and you can challenge one another in that way. But then also that first day, even though Madeline was like struggling, she was like, seeing you take pictures again was the favorite part of my day. I was
I
like,
know that was really
oh,
sweet.
see, there is stuff. And then this is my last one. And then I have a question for you before we move on to the next segment. But I thought also the BFF relationship, even though I'm like, we've had this conversation before. Can you have a platonic BFF relationship?
With the
I
opposite.
don't. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the fact that Emily let Mike like understood his space to grieve
Mhm.
after a broken heart. And you guys, broken heart syndrome is a very real thing. Look it up. Um, where he's like not functioning as well. Like that's
Mhm.
real.
Yeah.
Like I was surprised at how real that made it.
Mhm.
I thought that was amazing. And then they had a very real talk of like Keegan and Harley, even though like I wasn't super into that relationship. But the fact that they were talking about not feeling enough after divorce, that's a very real conversation of like not
Mm.
feeling enough, being afraid that you'll never feel like you're good enough for someone else after divorce. Like the fact that they were open and talking about, they brought up a lot of real stuff. There were actually some good quotes in here that I will break script with. How did you feel about the song? That's my question.
Um, okay, it wasn't the worst. No, it actually I was surprised at
Okay.
it was better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah. I was really surprised that I was like, oh my gosh, Jeanotte, I'm pretty sure that's his voice. I was like, he has a really good voice.
Yeah, I thought he had a really good voice.
I was shocked. How do you feel about someone singing to you or singing a song they wrote for you
Worst
to
nightmare
you?
ever. Absolutely worst nightmare. Never.
Did I ever tell you about the guy that sang worship songs to me as love songs? And then so then I couldn't sing those worship songs.
No, that
Oh,
is
my God.
horrible.
Traumatizing. All right, our
Seriously.
second segment is AIYA, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls, where sometimes the Omo Omo Nardar comes out, which are like our highest rated episodes. We talk about unhealthy behaviors and coping mechanisms. Okay,
Yes.
this was your typical Hallmark trope of an
Yeah.
organized girl planner who makes lists, needs to get out of the city in order to let go. I always feel attacked. Because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, but organization is so helpful. You can't like attack all of it, people. We need
Mhm.
some organization to function well. Anyways, what do you have here?
Well, also the fiance, very
Mhm. Of course.
tropey. I mean, talking about like clearly there was an unhealthy dynamic there, and I don't know, he did bulldoze, like he really wasn't very kind to her at all. And
Right.
even like the fact that he was making her leave because okay, I will say that is a very realistic scenario where she wanted to stay in Niagara. Madeline wanted to stay in Niagara for the wedding, okay? Even though
Right.
she doesn't know these people. And
Yes.
he kept saying like he needed to go back. And so
Yeah.
he like just went ahead and booked the tickets. And then she later finds out it was just so he could play golf. I mean, that's never
Ew.
happened to me. But I'm just saying like that feels very
Get
real.
real. Mm-hmm.
And I will say they did a great job in that really exposed just how completely selfish he was. And
Yes.
I appreciated that because sometimes it doesn't feel like enough of a turning point when the characters break
Oh,
up with their significant other.
yeah.
But that really to me highlighted like even I was like, you are so selfish. Like you
Yeah.
can't think about anyone other than
Yeah.
yourself. Um So, yeah, I mean, I think what's his name? Whoever his name's
Jason.
yeah, well, Chris Violet or whatever played a great villain, and like from the moment you meet him, you
Totally.
don't like him.
Yeah.
Um, but and then all like clearly everybody, like the sisters have their issues. Like, um,
Totally.
Harley is still struggling with her divorce, and you know,
I was
I
surprised she was triggered by the wedding because I was like,
I
wait, wasn't
know,
her sister just planning a wedding? So
I know,
it seemed like she was surprised by the trigger, but it's like,
true.
didn't they just, wouldn't she have known? Like,
That it was something that she was triggered at because she was
because she
probably
just
the
did
maid
that
of
with her
honor,
sister.
but
Like, yeah,
yeah.
like they seem close. So there were some things that were like some plot holes, but I appreciated what they broached, like certain topics that we can discuss because clearly he's a bad fiance, but also if she's been doing his laundry and he doesn't want her to, that's like the people pleaser thing where I've definitely done this where I'm guilty of helping people or
Mm,
fixing things when they haven't asked. I've something I've been working on. I can say I've improved here. I feel a lot
mm.
less guilty these days. Um, but how does she not know he has lucky socks if they've been together for 3 years?
I
Like,
think they just don't know each other. I think it's pretty clear that they live on different wavelengths.
totally. It's just really bizarre. And then also, like, if she wants him to do things that she wants to do on the honeymoon, she can't be like, you can't golf at all. Like, then you go golf together. Like, that was just such a weird, like, if they were
I know.
painting him as like total villain, it was like, oh, what's going on here? So
Yeah.
I feel like the general public, a lot of people would like hit the Omo Omo Nardar alert here because he's being painted as clearly a bad fiance. But the
Yeah.
scarier narcissist is the one who, when he came to Niagara, he would put on and be on good behavior for 3 months straight. Like over the top,
Right.
like he wouldn't be calling to plan a golf trip. It would be all about her. And then it would flip 3 months later. That's the
I agree.
scarier one where you can't tell.
Yes.
Like this
I
one,
agree.
I was
He
like,
was just selfish. And that's what
yeah,
I said. He just felt like a selfish guy, and they didn't feel like a great couple. They probably are great on paper, but they're not really compatible.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. Um, okay. I just have one more thing. Do you have anything else here?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so you know that quote, um,
The Maya
nothing in
Angelou?
life. Oh
Oh,
no,
no.
that's my favorite one. I'm gonna end with that. But
Yeah.
nothing in life is worth doing if it doesn't come with a bit of risk. It
Yes.
also goes along with like someone who has like a hard work ethic, like I'm not afraid of hard work. But I also had to learn and like reprogram from it's only worth it if it's hard, but then you can end up subconsciously working harder or making things harder.
That's a good
Because
point.
if you work smarter, it feels like you haven't really achieved it or you don't deserve it because it wasn't hard enough.
It's a good
I
point.
wrestled with that quite a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't love that because then I also, yeah, I think it does minimize things that I mean, especially I don't know. I really do believe that the Lord opens doors. And so what if he opens a door
Yeah.
that it's easy to walk through? Is it not as deserving, or does it mean like it was a coincidence? Like, I don't know. I don't always think that things come with risk. I do believe that there are things that you have to work hard for and that are hard to do, and they feel
Totally.
very rewarding after. But I do think sometimes we're preconditioned to think that just because you didn't have to work hard, they're not as rewarding, or we didn't
100%.
earn it as much.
So important to note. All right, let's move on then to AIGOO OWT with the Poodles already. Lala probably has a lot more here where it's plot holes, continuity issues, the wait what's, and what we didn't like. I mean, obviously, I know the most obvious one is like, come on, they fell in love in a week. Like,
Right?
but this is your typical Hallmark feel-good trope. I
Okay,
mean, this is what they do best.
Okay, well, starting out right at the beginning, when Harley and Maddie get to the hotel and she was going to check in under her married name
Oh
with
yeah, I had
ID,
this.
I'm like,
They wouldn't let
that's
you.
no, because your ID would not have been changed. Like,
Yep.
I know this because I went almost 10 years without changing my ID to my married name. I just went by my married name, but I didn't like do any of the changes.
Yeah.
So there's no way that right after your wedding, the logistics of that are just impossible. Okay.
Totally.
So, also I wrote Niagara Falls is never that empty.
I was wondering about that. I was like, wait, there's
It's always
no one
busy.
at the zip line and they can just go again. Like there were literally, it was ghost town.
Even when she first was walking along the falls by herself, I was
How did
like,
they do
wow,
that?
I've never seen it that empty. How did she not see that he had coffee in his cup when she threw the change?
Look before you throw change
Look,
in
but throw
cups,
you throw.
people.
Exactly.
Uh,
I think one of the lines that Harley said or Maddie is Niagara is so big. Niagara is very small, actually. Like the city, I guess, limits or whatever, right?
yeah.
But like actually the Niagara Falls area kind of reminds me of like downtown Nashville, like very small. Like you think in your
Mm,
mind it's very big, but it's actually not. It's like a strip, a couple streets. There's some areas where there's hotels, but you'd actually be quite surprised at how small it is. The biggest
yeah.
part, I think, is the fact that you can walk the whole
Around.
falls. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Niagara is small. Who lets strangers sit at your dinner table?
Okay. Okay. Oh, I forgot this is a part of my glimmers. Have you
Oh,
never been on
gone on
vacation and met people while you're on vacation and become friends?
no. And sorry to everybody, but I do not want that. When I'm on vacation, I'm trying
Leave
to
me
get
alone.
away. Yeah, like leave me alone. I want to spend time with my husband or
Okay.
my family. I don't want to meet new
That's
people.
so funny because I think that is the Midwest part of me. Because I totally would have been that.
Totally.
Like, girlfriend, I was born in New York, raised in LA. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to talk to strangers. But then once you get to the Midwest, it's like everyone's so
Everyone's your friend.
friendly. And then now that I think about it, when you go back, like even the San Fernando Valley where the Valley Girls, every time I go back, I'm like, oh my gosh, the San Fernando Valley feels like such a small town. And people actually feel friendlier there than they do in the Midwest now.
Interesting.
My theory is that it's because there's like a mass exodus and
Mm.
people are flipping. But anyways, um, no, I totally we've been on cruises. And granted, there's like ones where you get seated with the same people at every meal
Right.
sitting. But like we became friends and kept in touch after the cruise.
No way.
Yes, totally.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, after a couple years, we lost touch, but we kept in touch for a couple years.
That's
Like the one
unbelievable.
couple, there was two married couples, and there was a couple that had only been dating for like 2 months, and
Oh
they
my
weren't like
gosh.
super close yet. I was just like, oh, this was a cheap, like it was a last minute cruise for us too. Like we booked it last minute, and it was for them too. It was just a short one to Ensenada, but that we kept in touch. They ended up getting married.
That's wild. It just is, I don't know why. It just is not like I think when I'm in vacation, I want to do my own thing. I want to like and I'm like a people person. So I guess my vacation is like I'm around people all the time. I'm very social. It's
Mm.
like the time when I don't want to socialize and I want to like recharge. But it was just like I think the way it was set up, the fact that it was these strangers, but then they happened to be friends with the
Yeah,
tour
yeah,
guide. It was just too on the nose. Um,
yeah. But stuff like that
Also,
happens to me.
it's true. Okay, why is there pictures of Niagara Falls everywhere?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
The restaurant had a picture, the hotel rooms had a picture. They were always looking at books. Everywhere had pictures of Niagara Falls, the falls. I'm
Yes.
like, we get it. We know
That's the
you're there.
psychological subtle messaging marketing that wants you to come. And it worked for me.
This is a question for you.
Okay.
Did you see the photograph payment amount? How much the couple was going to pay? Harley? I didn't, but I'm
No.
like, oh, okay. I was like,
Was
I was watching it on the TV, so I couldn't zoom in. Um, who plans a wedding and doesn't book a photographer?
Oh, I thought the photographer just flaked. But it kind of, okay, this is what it felt like. It felt, don't people do this? Like instead of going to Vegas and getting married, don't they go to Niagara and get married?
I think
Or it's
people
like
do.
eloping.
I feel like you would hear of that like when I was younger. I don't hear of it as much anymore, but there's
Mm,
definitely a lot of weddings. That one
yeah.
felt less like a wedding and more like they were eloping. I think they should have said eloping because wedding
We're getting into
implies
semantics. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a big event. Um,
Yes.
I'm scared of heights, so I've never done the sky wheel. I don't know why that's in this place because that's not a continuity error. Um, but
But it's because you didn't like it.
no, but her panic attack, how did her panic attack completely just stop?
That was my thing. I was like, oh my gosh, this happened in retreat to you. Like phobias and panic attacks don't just suddenly
Go away.
end.
She
Like it
literally, it was like she was possessed. That's a bad word, but she literally was like having a panic attack. And then he said something like, I asked them to do it. And then all of a sudden she was like, oh my gosh, he did.
if
Like it
you
was,
this is a girl you met a week ago and this
and
is a real phobia. You don't pay for them to stop
no,
at the highest point.
no. And then my last point was, oh, 2 points. Why would it be unethical to date a client? It is a tour guide company that specializes in probably really only day tours. So it's not really unethical. You're not like a service provide me, you're not her therapist, you're not her
Yeah.
doctor. You're a tour guide. And lastly, everything was way too fast. The wedding was too fast. The bouquet, like they ended the wedding and she's like, I'm gonna toss the
Throw
bouquet.
the
And then
bouquet
she
immediately. Yes, I have
yes.
that
And I was
too.
like, too fast. Too
Okay,
fast.
not only that, but the moment Mike and Madeline choose to declare their love for one another, first of all, was not short. It was longer than the wedding vows.
Oh,
Was
yes,
in
you're
the
right.
middle of a
Middle of the
wedding.
wedding.
Like,
Agreed.
would you not be more
Especially with a stranger.
cautious?
It's not like your best friend. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like if it was your best friend and this was happening to her right before your wedding, I mean, I probably would be like, yes, oh my gosh, but like you're a stranger.
It is
You're
so
hijacking my wedding.
bizarre. So bizarre. I also really didn't like the subtle message of in order to be courageous and transform into who you should be. First of all, I don't believe in shitting on yourself or like who you're
Mm,
supposed to be. There is no supposed to. Basically, it was like you need to quit your desk job and start your own business. Listen, I've worked for myself like 99.9% of my life. I'm pro freelancers and entrepreneurs. Like, yes, time freedom. You get to
yeah,
design your life, yada, yada. But listen, that can end up owning you too. Like,
it's true.
your who you are shouldn't be defined by what you're doing. Like,
I
your being
agree.
isn't defined by your doing. So, like, I felt like that's where they were leaning towards. And that's so, like, per person.
Mm,
You have to have context. Like, yeah, and then also, not only that, but there were certain things like there were a lot of romantic walks along the falls that I'm like, how did they end up on that walk? Like, there was a continuity issues where it's like, how did they end up alone? Like, Mike and Madeline, Keegan and Harley. Like, I was like, wait, you guys were just all together.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, my one of my biggest ones, the karaoke songs.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. Were
What
those made up?
were those?
I literally had a thought as I was watching this. They must be made up because they don't want to pay to license
That's
anything.
exactly what it is.
And so I think they did like these oldie songs to like get away with the fact
because
that
you don't have to
people.
pay for licensing, but still, I feel like there are still better ones that you can pick.
No, I wonder if they made it up and made it to feel like old-timey songs, so that way they would just be like, "Oh, I didn't know that song." Not they completely
So
made up
weird.
songs.
But
It was
also
bizarre.
it was so cringy. I couldn't even watch it. I had to like fast forward through it.
Same.
I mean, there were so many other that we could go on forever. Like he's scared to play in front of people, but he's playing and singing at a public park where there's people. Like that doesn't make any sense. When he's playing video games, who sits and plays on a laptop sitting on the edge
their
of their
bed.
bed?
I know.
Anyways, shall we move on?
Let's do it.
Our last segment is Jia You, fighting happily ever after. This is what we think happens after the movie and who we are rooting for. Can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Well, they don't realize, but he's Canadian, she's American. They have a long immigration process to go through. I've done it twice. I know.
Real life here.
Same with her sister Harley's boyfriend.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe this is what's going to happen, okay?
Okay.
Harley and Maddie, they're going to move to Canada because, sorry, but Canada has free healthcare and, you know, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say it's the best. I'm just going to say Canada's great. They're going to move to Canada. They're going to live like Maddie and Mike, they're going to buy a nice home in Niagara on the Lake and keep doing tours. And she can be an accountant. She can work for the tour company. It's going to be great. Honestly, so uninspiring. I like have nothing.
Done. She's out.
Except I know a great immigration lawyer. Maddie and Mike, like reach out if you need.
Okay, here's my thing. I think that Jocelyn Hudon is really great at these destination movies. She was in Love in the Maldives that made me want to go. I mean, who doesn't want to go to the Maldives?
Right?
But like the way that they shot it, it was like very like it was great marketing material for them. Like I felt like this was great marketing for the falls.
Oh, for sure.
I want her to end up with Mike. Like she ends up, you know, moving to Canada, but maybe the way that they go through this long, you know, immigration paperwork process is they end up she helps them grow their business because she's an accountant. So she ends up joining their business, but they get to travel together and do research and they expand beyond Niagara. You're welcome, Hallmark. You should make this into a sequel. Lala won't watch, but I will. They go to another place that I don't know about to add to my bucket list. And this one didn't have food, so I just need you to add food to it. Like, show me food that I don't know about that I want to go eat. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Which,
So
you know
that's
what?
I
I will say Niagara has like tons of these little, they should have, you know what? It's licensing. Like they have a big Hershey's store. They have all these like specialty places, but we missed that because of licensing.
Yeah. It's all about the money. That's why they missed it. And so, anyway, I just had one last final thought. Do you have any favorite quotes or final thoughts?
No.
I really did love the Maya Angelou.
Well, yes, yeah.
Quote. I thought that was very appropriate in the butterfly. Was it called the Butterfly Gardens or was it called
the Butterfly Conservatory?
That says we delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but we rarely admit the change it has to go through to achieve that beauty. And I'm gonna tell you about the time. I'm telling you about my church hurt traumas. When you like after church service, you like go up for prayer. And this one lady was like trying to give me a prophetic word.
Okay.
And she brings up butterflies, and I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, you're totally just giving me this word because I'm wearing a Tiffany butterfly necklace.
No. Oh,
and I was like,
cringe.
I might be guilty of that. I don't know. I was just like, I was so like, wah, 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 like it didn't land. But then later that night, like just in my own time with Jesus, I can't remember how it happened, but somehow I stumbled upon, I just remember crying. Like it was like the same cadence or like sound of like, you know, when Josie Grossi says like, I'm not Josie Grossi
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was reading this article and in my head, it was like, you're not a caterpillar anymore. Like, and I was like weeping. It was like so dramatic. And it was because I was reading this article about how like when the caterpillar's in the cocoon, it literally like it becomes goop. Like literally your DNA
Wow.
is changing. Like who you are is
Whoa.
changing. And that was like
That's
God's
amazing.
message for me that day was like who you are is changing. And it feels so like I feel like goop. I had that again this week. I was like, I feel like
So
I'm in a
good.
cocoon and I'm goop. And it feels
That's
like
so
a
good.
mess. But you're literally your DNA, who you are is changing. Anyways, it reminded me of that. I was like, I'm not a caterpillar.
I
I was
love
having a
that.
really hard week. I watched this after a true crime documentary. So maybe that's why my ratings were higher.
Oh, that would definitely do it. I think. But this is a good, like, this is, I will say, PSA, if you watch true crime, this is a great chaser.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Maybe that's why I was like, I love this movie so much.
Maybe
because it was a really heavy documentary.
Maybe that's my trick, is I gotta go true crime first,
Yes.
then Hallmark.
Okay, we're gonna do
Secret
that.
sauce.
Next week's gonna be Heine Roulette, where I pick a random Tyler Hynes movie that Lala hasn't seen yet.
Let's do it.
And we'll go from there.
Okay, well, that is it for our episode. Thanks for breaking script with us. Please share this episode on your socials and tag at the Breaking Script Podcast. Follow and hit the notification bell button so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't yet, please rate and review an Apple Podcast so we can spread more Hallmark glimmers with the world. We'll talk to you next time.